My husband believed our housekeeper's lies about me cheating after we caught her stealing. If you told me a year ago that my life would get flipped upside down by a woman who scrubbed my floors twice a week, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am, telling you how my housekeeper nearly destroyed my marriage. Let me rewind. I'm Morgan Adams, 34, ER nurse in Springfield, Illinois. I work insane hours, half my wardrobe is hospital scrubs, and most days, I'm too tired to cook more than microwaved rice and eggs. My husband, Blake, is a business analyst, one of those guys who's always either in a meeting or prepping for the next one. We've been married 6 years. No kids yet. Just a mortgage, matching coffee mugs, and the kind of love you build over years of exhaustion and teamwork. We finally bought our dream home. Nothing huge, just a solid 3-bedroom in a quiet part of town with a backyard for the dog we keep saying we'll get. And for the first time, we had the means to hire help around the house. Enter Sabrina Torres. Mid-30s. Polite. Spanish accent. Showed up to the interview with spotless sneakers and a list of referrals longer than a CVS receipt. I liked her instantly. She was warm, organized, and didn't flinch at the mountain of laundry I'd half forgotten in the basement. We hired her that same day. For the first 2 months, everything was perfect. Sabrina came Tuesdays and Fridays. She cleaned, did laundry, even left little notes on the fridge like refilled hand soap in bathroom or tried removing the wine stain from the rug. Almost gone. I baked her muffins once. She brought me tea bags from her home country. Blake called her a miracle worker. She became familiar, friendly, safe. Then small things started going missing. Not big things, not at first. Just enough to raise eyebrows. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. Blake's earbuds vanished. My necklace I wore during nursing school disappeared from the bathroom shelf. A couple 20s from my purse? I thought I was just being forgetful. Until Blake noticed his grandmother's bracelet, the one we kept in a velvet box in our room, was gone. We tore the place apart. Nothing. I mentioned it to Sarah, my sister, who immediately said, "You need to install cameras." At first, I thought that was overkill. Sabrina was part of our routine. Trusted. She smiled at me while folding our towels. She knew where we kept the extra toilet paper. But then Blake found one of his bank envelopes in the trash. Empty. He hadn't opened it. That's when I caved. We put a small camera in the hallway, one that caught the front of the bedroom door and the bookshelf. I told myself it was just for peace of mind. But I didn't sleep the night we checked it. Because at 11:43 a.m. on a Friday, right after Blake and I had both left for work, Sabrina was clearly seen walking into our bedroom. She wasn't cleaning. She wasn't dusting. She was rifling through the top drawer of my nightstand. She pulled out a small pouch, where I kept my emergency cash, and slid it into her bag like she was grabbing gum from a grocery shelf. No hesitation. No panic. Just routine. I sat there in shock, replaying the moment 3 times. Blake leaned back on the couch and just muttered, "We trusted her." We agreed not to say anything until she came in for her next shift. We confront her directly together. And we did. That Tuesday morning, we waited in the kitchen. Sabrina came in, smiling like always, humming a song I didn't recognize. She set down her cleaning tote and went to grab the vacuum. Blake spoke first. "Sabrina, can we talk for a minute?" She paused. I could see the flicker in her eyes, not panic. Calculation. We showed her the footage. She stared. Silent. Then blinked once and said, "Cool as hell. You really want to do this?" Blake and I looked at each other. "You're stealing from us," I said. "We're giving you one chance to explain before we call the police." She let out this soft, bitter laugh. Like we were the ones caught. Then she said, "Call the police if you want. But I have something better. Want to talk about how your wife has been sleeping with someone else?" My entire body went cold. Blake turned to me slowly. I felt the blood drain from my face. What the hell is she talking about? Sabrina smiled, not friendly. Predatory. I've got proof. Photos. Messages. You think she's so perfect? You think I didn't notice the red flags? I couldn't speak. Because I didn't understand what game she was playing or how far she was willing to go to save herself. Blake just stood there. Silent. Processing. Sabrina grabbed her bag and walked to the door. Maybe think twice before accusing someone who knows your secrets. And then she left. We didn't call the cops that day. We didn't say anything at all. Blake slept in the guest room. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, trying to figure out what just happened and how I was going to prove to my own husband that I wasn't the one lying. I thought Blake would calm down. I thought once the shock wore off, he'd talk to me. Really talk. We'd sit down, go over the facts, deal with the theft, and rebuild. But I was wrong. He didn't say a word to me that night. Or the next. He just quietly packed his pillow and phone charger and moved to the guest room like it was some kind of timeout, and I was the misbehaving child. That silence, it cut deeper than shouting ever could. I'm not perfect, but I've never been dishonest, never cheated, never even come close. And suddenly, because of one lie from a woman we caught stealing, I was living in a home where I felt like a criminal. Blake avoided eye contact, ate at different times, left the room when I walked in. Every time I tried to bring it up, he'd say, "Just give me time, Morgan." But time without truth is just distance. And distance turns into doubt. Then came the post. Someone sent me a screenshot through Messenger. No name, just the image. It was a Facebook post, public, written by Sabrina. Some women pretend to be innocent wives while sneaking around with men who aren't their husbands. Some of us know the truth, even if it's inconvenient. It didn't have my name, but it didn't need to. People knew who worked in that house. People talked. One of my coworkers even asked if Blake and I were separated. And it got worse. Sabrina started telling mutual clients, yes, mutual, that she was forced to leave our home because I was unstable. That I lashed out. That I threatened her when she caught me doing something I shouldn't. I brought the post to Blake. I had it printed out. "She's trying to ruin me," I said. "This is retaliation." He stared at it. Didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally, he said, "Did you? Did I what? Did you cheat on me?" That moment broke something in me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at him like he was a stranger. "You really think I would cheat on you and then call you in to confront the woman blackmailing me about it?" He looked down. "People lie, Morgan." "Yeah," I said. "And you're believing the one with stolen cash in her handbag." He didn't have an answer. I called my sister, Sarah, that night. Poured out everything, the theft, the confrontation, the accusation, Blake's silence. She was furious. "You need to hire someone," she said. "Get a digital forensics expert. If she says she has photos or texts, let's beat her to it. Prove there's nothing." At first, it sounded over the top. But honestly, at this point, I needed receipts. Not for the world, for my husband. Because clearly, my word wasn't enough anymore. The specialist was a guy named Reed. Young, quiet, straight to the point. I gave him everything, my phone, my old laptop, even my work tablet. He scanned every account, every login, every message. It took 3 days. And when he came back, he said, "There's no trace of infidelity. No deleted apps. No encrypted messages. Nothing that even hints at cheating." I almost cried. Not because I didn't already know I was innocent, but because now I could prove it. I printed the report, laid it on the kitchen table like a loaded weapon. Blake came in that evening, saw the folder, flipped through the pages. Silence. Then he finally said, "So, she made it all up?" I just stared at him. "I told you that a week ago. You didn't believe me then. I didn't know what to think. You thought a thief made more sense than your own wife." He sat down slowly. "Why would she do this?" "Because she got caught. And when people like her are cornered, they don't apologize, they burn the house down." We didn't talk the rest of that night. I didn't care if he stayed in the guest room again. I didn't care if he never left it. Something had shifted. Not just between us, inside me. Because I realized, you can forgive doubt once, maybe. But when someone you love thinks the worst of you that fast, that's not trust. That's convenience. A few days later, Blake came to me with his phone in his hand. He had messages from 2 other people who used to hire Sabrina. One of them had caught her stealing jewelry. The other accused her of taking their son's birthday cash out of a drawer. But neither had gone public. "We should have reported her," he said. "You still can," I said. "You still should." "We should," he corrected. And that's when I finally said it out loud. "No, you should. Because we didn't let this spiral. You did." It had been 2 weeks since Blake moved back into the bedroom. You'd think that would have felt like a win, a step toward repair. But all it really meant was that he was finally convinced I hadn't cheated. That didn't mean everything was fine. Trust doesn't come back just because the storm passes. Sometimes, when the walls crack, the damage is already done. But I didn't have time to dwell on feelings. Because the next storm? It came hard, and this time, it didn't hit my marriage. It hit my career. It started with a weird message from HR. I was at work, mid-shift at the ER, trying to talk down a combative patient who swore his chest pain was just gas and refused treatment. Typical Thursday chaos. I checked my phone during a break and saw the subject line, HR inquiry, immediate attention required. I opened it. There were no details, just a request to schedule a meeting the next morning. I showed it to my supervisor. She looked confused but agreed to cover my shift. Then I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to convince myself this was nothing. It wasn't. The next morning, I walked into the HR office at Springfield General and immediately saw the director's face, neutral, tense, careful. "Morgan," she said, "we've received a complaint. An anonymous tip." I waited. "The message accused you of violating HIPAA protocols. Specifically that you accessed a patient file outside your assigned caseload, and that you were using that information in a personal relationship." I blinked. "What? Who?" She held up a printout. The message was untraceable, burner email, no sender name, but the wording was very, very familiar. "A nurse at this hospital," it read, "has been using patient access as a dating pool. She recently ended an affair with someone who was under her care during a recent admission. She's deleting messages and covering her tracks." I thought the hospital deserved to know. The accusation? That I used patient information to pursue an affair. The patient in question? A man named Nathan Connors, early 40s, admitted 2 months ago for a cardiac scare. I remembered him. Friendly guy. We talked about his daughter starting college. I gave him pudding and adjusted his oxygen tank. That was it. Now someone was saying I slept with him? The HR director watched my face carefully. "We're not accusing you of anything," she said. "But we have to investigate. It's policy." I nodded. Slowly. Like I could somehow slow time down by moving carefully. "This is insane," I said. "This is retaliation." "From who?" I told her everything. The stolen cash, the false cheating accusation, the Facebook post, the forensics report. She didn't react. "HR people never do." "We'll open a case file," she said. "You'll be placed on administrative leave during the review. It's not disciplinary. It's just procedure." I walked out of the building with my badge clipped to my collar like it still meant something. And then I sat in the parking lot and cried for the first time in weeks. Not because I thought I'd lose my job. Because I realized Sabrina wasn't just bitter, she was dangerous. I went home. Blake was on the phone in his office. I waited until he finished, then dropped the HR printout on his desk. He read it. Sat back. Paled. "She really did it." "Yeah," I said. "She wants to ruin me." And then he did something I didn't expect. He stood up, took my hand, and said, "Then we go to war." We started with the paper trail. I gave Blake access to every single file, login, and text I had. I recontacted Reed, the digital forensics guy, and told him what happened. He agreed to prep a report for the hospital. I tracked down Nathan Connors, the patient named in the tip. Turns out, he lived 30 minutes away. I called him. "Hi, Mr. Connors? This is Morgan Adams. I was your nurse at Springfield General." He was polite, confused. Then I explained why I was calling. There was a long pause. "Wait, someone said we were involved?" "Yes, and that I accessed your file for personal reasons." "That's absolutely false. You were professional, kind. But no, nothing like that happened." He agreed to write a formal statement. Said he'd call the hospital directly. Even offered to speak to their lawyers if needed. That was the first real relief I'd felt in days. But the damage had already started. A rumor leaked, I don't know how. But suddenly I wasn't just on leave. I was the nurse who messed with a patient. People don't wait for evidence. They don't wait for explanations. They see smoke. They assume fire. One of the techs I'd worked with for years didn't return my messages. A former coworker unfollowed me on social media. Even my own mother asked, gently, if there was anything I needed to admit. That broke me more than the HR meeting ever could. Sabrina had flipped the script again. She took getting fired for theft and turned it into me being the threat. And I realized if I didn't fight this head on, she was going to win. Blake called a lawyer. We brought in Reed's full report. We drafted an affidavit from Nathan Connors. I compiled printouts of every message Sabrina had sent or posted about me, including the Facebook post and the passive-aggressive Instagram caption she put up the day I went on leave. Funny how karma always knows your schedule. We weren't just clearing my name. We were building a civil suit. The hospital cleared me in 5 days. The HR director apologized, though not in so many words. Just said, "Your evidence was thorough. Thank you for cooperating." But my reputation? That would take longer to repair. They offered me a phased return. I accepted. Not because I wanted to go back into those halls yet, but because I refused to let her win by walking away. That same week, our lawyer filed a defamation suit against Sabrina Torres. Formal, public, and within 3 days, she took down every post. But it didn't undo what she'd done. The rumors, the suspicion, the tension in Blake's eyes every time he looked at me, like he still didn't know which version of me he believed. You want to know what betrayal really is? It's not a knife in your back. It's watching someone hesitate to protect you while someone else is slandering your name. I told Blake I needed space. Just a few days. I packed a bag and stayed at Sarah's. Slept in her guest room. Ate takeout. watch trash TV with her fiancé, and laugh for the first time in forever. She poured wine and said, "This isn't over. But you're not losing." And she was right. I had facts, evidence, a cleared record. But still, the person I'd shared a home with, a bed with, had believed a stranger over me. And I didn't know if I could ever forget that. When the court documents were officially filed, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not peace, not relief, power. I had spent the last month getting steamrolled by someone I let into my house, into my life. Sabrina had tried to steal more than money. She tried to steal my reputation, my marriage, and my career. And now, she was going to answer for it. The lawsuit was public record. Sabrina Torres was now the defendant in a civil defamation and malicious interference suit. I wasn't expecting jail time. This wasn't criminal, but the court could hit her with thousands in damages, plus legal costs. Even if she didn't pay, the judgment would follow her. This was about more than money. This was about making it real. The first blow from her side came 3 days later. A legal email from her attorney. Short and cowardly. My client is prepared to discuss a financial settlement to avoid trial. Terms negotiable. She regrets the situation and is willing to resolve this discreetly. Translation? She wanted to pay me off quietly so she could move on without consequence. Blake forwarded me the message with one line. Up to you. And just like that, I knew something else had shifted. He wasn't trying to talk me down anymore. He wasn't questioning my judgment. He was backing me, but I wasn't sure it mattered anymore. We met in our lawyer's office later that week. I was sitting across from Blake, paperwork between us. Our attorney explained the offer, low 5 figures. No admission of guilt. Confidentiality agreement. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I pushed the folder back. No deal. Our lawyer looked up. You're sure? Yeah, I said. I want this in court. I want it on record. I want our lies under oath. Blake didn't say a word, just nodded slowly. That told me everything. The court date was scheduled 4 weeks out. During that time, Sabrina tried to reach out through a burner Instagram account. She sent me a DM with no profile picture, just a message that said, "You really want to do this? It's not too late to walk away." I screenshotted it, sent it to my lawyer, and blocked the account. 2 days later, a new email came through, to my professional account this time. "I didn't mean to ruin your life, but you left me no choice. I needed the job. I needed the money. You could have let it go." Let it go? She tried to destroy me. And now she wanted mercy? No, I didn't tell Blake about that last message. Not because I was hiding it. I just didn't want to give him another reason to spiral. Things between us were still tense. Civil, but hollow. Like we were playing house again, but without the warmth. He still made coffee for me in the morning. Still asked how my shift was. But there was something missing. Something I used to take for granted. Trust. And part of me knew, deep down, that even if we won in court, I might have already lost him. When the day came, I wore black. Not to be dramatic. I just wanted to look sharp. Serious. Focused. I didn't want to be the emotional victim. I wanted to be the woman who came to finish what someone else started. Sabrina showed up 20 minutes late. She looked different, smaller somehow. She didn't make eye contact with me. Barely glanced at Blake. She sat with her attorney, whispering like she was still in control. But she wasn't. Our lawyer opened strong, laid out the timeline. The theft, the accusation, the smear campaign, the attempt to sabotage my job. He showed the receipts, the screenshots, the forensics report, Nathan Connors' affidavit. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked up, placed my hand on the Bible, and told the court exactly what had happened, start to finish. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. When I got to the part about how she told my husband I was cheating, I paused. Then I looked directly at Sabrina and said, the worst part wasn't the lie. It was how easily it was believed. The courtroom went quiet. Sabrina's attorney didn't even bother cross-examining me. Then they brought her up. And it was like watching a snake try to wear a smile. She played the poverty card. Said she'd been desperate. Said she thought she was being fired unfairly and panicked. She admitted to posting the Facebook message, but called it a moment of weakness. As for the anonymous tip to the hospital, she denied it. Of course. But the IP logs from the email matched a location tied to her boyfriend's apartment. Our lawyer pointed that out. Her face went stiff. In the end, the judge didn't need long. He ruled in our favor. Awarded us full damages, over $25,000 plus legal fees. No jail, but a permanent black mark on our record. And now, every time someone Googles Sabrina Torres, Springfield, Illinois, they'll see that she tried to ruin someone and failed. After court, I sat on a bench outside while Blake talked to our lawyer. The sun was too bright. My heels were killing me, but I felt, still, like I'd finally reached the shore after months of drowning. Blake walked over and sat beside me. "You did it," he said. I shrugged. "Too bad I had to." There was a long pause. Then he said, "I'm sorry. For believing her. For doubting you." I nodded. "I know." But in that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't the problem. Resentment was. Because even after everything, even with my name cleared, a part of me still couldn't let go of the way he looked at me that night. Like a stranger. That weekend, I told him I needed time. I packed a bag. Booked a little Airbnb outside of town. Just a few days. Alone. No noise. No blame. Just breathing space. And you know what? It felt good. Because for the first time since this mess started, I finally had my life back. That night, I broke my silence. I logged back into Instagram just to check messages. Big mistake. Right at the top of my feed, a screenshot from a burner Reddit account someone forwarded to me. A thread honor/true off my chest, anonymous, vague, but obviously written by someone who knew exactly what happened. The title? My ex-employer tried to ruin me after I caught her cheating. Then she sued me. My heart stopped. The post was a well-crafted lie. It called me a vindictive nurse with too much pride who planted evidence after being confronted. Said I weaponized the legal system to silence the only person who knew the truth. She didn't name me directly, but she included a timestamped photo of our front porch, the one she had taken months ago when she first started cleaning for us. That was enough. I forwarded the post to our lawyer. Then I sat on the bed and stared at the wall for a long time. Because even after winning, even after clearing my name, even after court, Sabrina still couldn't let it go. She needed the last word. I called Blake. He answered on the second ring. "Hey." "She's still at it," I said. "Posted some garbage on Reddit. Anonymous, but it's her." He was quiet for a second, then said, "Send it to me." "Already did." I gave it to the lawyer. "Good," he said. "She won't stop until someone makes her." I wanted to say, she already went to court. What more is there? But I didn't. Instead, I asked him a question I hadn't said out loud yet. "Do you still think I'm capable of doing what she said?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then, finally, I never wanted to believe it. But I didn't know how to defend something I didn't understand. "You didn't defend me at all." "I know." Silence. "I don't know if we can come back from this," I said. His voice cracked, just a little. "I don't either." The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from our lawyer. They'd found a digital footprint linking the Reddit post to the same IP address from her previous messages. Same burner network. Same patterns. "We'll file a contempt claim," he said. "She violated the settlement terms. This opens up a whole new case." So round two. But this time, I wasn't shaken. I was furious. I went home that night. Blake was already asleep on the couch, or pretending to be. I didn't wake him. I went upstairs, packed more of my things, and emailed our lawyer one line. "Let's do it." By the end of the week, we had a new court date. Sabrina was officially being sued again, this time for violating a gag clause and continuing a public defamation campaign. This was no longer about clearing my name. This was about consequences. And yet, I still kept thinking about Blake. Every time I drove past our house, every time I looked at a photo of us from before, I wondered if I had stayed, if I had just forgiven and forced a reset. Maybe it could have worked. But the truth is, forgiveness doesn't fix everything. Sometimes the damage isn't about what happened, it's about what didn't. Like your partner standing up for you when you needed it most. Like not having to prove your innocence to the person who's supposed to know you best. I stayed in the Airbnb until the night before court. And then, one final time, I walked into that courthouse and looked Sabrina in the face. She was smaller than I remembered. Maybe she always had been. We were back in court again. Our lawyer laid it all out. The prior judgment. The non-disparagement agreement Sabrina signed willingly. The new Reddit post. The matched IP. The timestamped porch photo that only someone in our home would have. It was so airtight, it practically choked the room. Sabrina's lawyer looked like he regretted waking up that morning. She didn't testify this time. She didn't say a word. Didn't look at me once. Probably thought if she stayed quiet, the judge might go easy. He didn't. The verdict came in 30 minutes after closing arguments. Guilty of violating the settlement. A new fine, $40,000. Plus a permanent injunction. If she posted about me again, publicly or anonymously, she'd face criminal contempt charges. The judge didn't even mask his irritation. "Miss Torres, the court is not a tool to be toyed with. If you thought anonymity would protect you, you were mistaken. Your behavior is reckless, cruel, and illegal. This stops now." She flinched. I didn't. When it was over, Blake walked out with me. We stood by the courthouse steps in silence. I looked at him and finally asked the question I'd been dragging behind me like dead weight for months. "Do you think we can ever get back to what we had?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I don't think what we had was strong enough." I nodded. "I agree." And just like that, the last string between us broke. No shouting. No scene. Just two people finally telling the truth. We filed for divorce a month later. It was clean. No drama. No lawyers beyond what was required. He offered to let me keep the house. I sold it. It wasn't home anymore. I moved into a small 2-bedroom condo across town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I started a small podcast with Sarah, Hard Truths. Nothing big. Just stories. Survival. The kind of stuff people think only happens to other people, until it happens to you. I went back to work full-time. My name was cleared. My license untouched. I started sleeping through the night again. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I started liking who I saw in the mirror. Do I hate Sabrina? No. Hating her would mean I'm still giving her real estate in my mind. People always say, truth always comes out. But what they don't say is that it might not come out on its own. Sometimes you have to claw for it, bleed for it, break a few things to get there. I lost my marriage. I lost a version of myself who believed that being good and honest was enough to be safe. But I gained something else. I learned that your name, your integrity, is worth protecting even if no one else believes you. Even if the people who love you hesitate. Even if you're the only one left standing when the dust settles. I'm not a perfect woman, but I'm not a liar. I'm not a cheater, and I'm not afraid anymore. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too.